Manager, and I am the Community Outreach and Partnerships Manager for the Hawaiian Humane Society. But your presenter today will be Harold, talking a little bit about our dangerous dog laws and what the Hawaiian Humane Society can do, and take any of your questions regarding that. So we are going to start sharing our screen, and Harold will start his presentation. So give us a second. All right, can everybody see that?
Can't hear anyone.
I'm going to say yes because I can't hear anyone. So
you're all good.
All righty.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you made it. Hopefully this can clarify some of the laws we have. First of all, before we get into the laws, I'd like to start out with the mission because it kind of aligns with the laws and the decisions we make. So it's to promote the human-animal bond and the humane treatment of all animals. Some of our history: we're established in 1883. We're one of the oldest animal welfare organizations in the country. In fact, either the second or we are the oldest. We were a voice for the voiceless. And when we first started, it was children, unwed mothers, mentally ill, and animals. And in 1897, we got authority to enforce animal cruelty laws, which back then were mostly livestock and horses and mules that had been overdriven. So field services, that's a team that goes out, our deputized officers. We do 24-hour emergencies and rescues. We do animal pickups. We educate the community through outreach. So we work heavily with Susie's team. And we enforce animal-related laws. So our officers are deputized by the Chief of Police, Honolulu Police Department, and we enforce cruelty and abandonment or desertion. We currently do not do barking dog complaints. We used to. HPD does those now. We do dog bites and dangerous dogs. So some of our partners in enforcement, the Honolulu Police Department is one of the main ones. They do the same law enforcement work as we do, or vice versa. Department of Land and Natural Resources officers police state parks and beaches. The U.S. military bases have exclusive enforcement on federal property. And we partner with other agencies on large-scale animal rescues. We work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Department of Agriculture with exotic animals, and of course our Sheriff's Department. So let's cover the first ordinance or law. It falls under our city's revised ordinances. It's an animal nuisance law. And believe it or not, animal nuisances or dog bite. Animal nuisance for the purposes of this section include any animal, farm animal, or poultry which bites or stings a person. So this ordinance is so old, it even includes bees, okay? Like when people keep beehives. So this is a minor dog bite that doesn't break skin, all right? And that falls under our animal nuisance ordinance. Our animal nuisance ordinance also has numbers of dogs, numbers of chickens, and animal noise. But like I said, the Humane Society currently doesn't enforce those. HPD does, all right? And in a majority of cases, animal nuisance laws are very rarely an animal issue. They're more of a people issue, all right? It's usually neighbors that can't get along with one another, all right? Strays prohibited, or our leash law. Stray or stray dog means any dog on the premises of a person other than the owner without the consent of the owner of that property, or on a public street running loose, or on private school grounds or any other public place, except when under the control of an owner by a leash that is not more than 8 feet in length. All right. But another interesting fact about this strays prohibited ordinance is the owner has to permit the dog to be loose. And that's kind of something we're working on, because that word permit kind of hinders us, because let's say you have a dog fenced in your yard, it's secure, let's say one of your children comes home, forgets to close the gate or leaves it unlocked and the dog gets out, that when we go to prosecute that stray dog, that dog may or may not be considered stray because it's like an accident. So we have to kind of get rid of that word permits, because permits would be like, I observe a person walking their golden retriever without a leash and the dog is running 10 feet in front of them, right? That would be something like permits. Bill 59, Ordinance 20-1, in July 1st, 2020, our public policy advocate was instrumental in getting this bill passed. It really has made a difference. Prior to this, we used to hold animals with identification for 9 days. Now we hold them for 5 days. If animals don't have identification, by ordinance, we hold them for 48 hours before we proceed with any kind of determination on their disposition. Bill 59 also raised our holding fees. So prior to this, if you lost your dog and you came in, you would pay $2.50 a day boarding or reclamation fee. Now we raised that to $10 a day, which is still not enough to cover the costs. Plus, if your animal is not microchipped, you need to spend or pay $25 because it's mandatory microchip for our dogs and cats. So dog licenses went away and now it's microchip, which is very permanent and very reliable in the terms of establishing an owner. Granted, though, that microchip must be registered with the microchip company properly or foundanimals.org. All right, so it's very important. If your pet is microchipped or you get a pet that's microchipped from someone else, really important that you update that microchip information with the microchip company or an organization like foundanimals.org. There's a 3 strikes rule. So after a third time, if your dog is found stray within a 12-month period, it's mandatory $85 spay or neuter and an additional $30 fee. And we've performed a number of those spay and neuters already based on this bill. So it's been really good for us. Bill 59 again, microchipping. All owned dogs and cats over 6 months must be microchipped except dogs 3 months or younger and not a stray. Owner information needs to be updated with the chip company. I kind of covered that already. So in case you're wondering, a microchip simply has a unique serial number identifying your dog or cat. It's about the size of a grain of rice and it's implanted usually like where the scruff of the neck or right above the shoulders under the skin. Now these microchips do migrate, so they're not always there. So we have to make sure we scan properly. And some people are under the impression it's a tracking device. They're not a tracking device quite yet. So they're just strictly a means of identifying your animal. All right, what is the dangerous dog law? Dangerous dog is any dog that attacks a person or an animal without provocation, and breed is not a consideration. All right, that's really important because we don't, in some jurisdictions in the continental US, they outlaw certain breeds, right? We don't do that here. Important components of the dangerous dog ordinance or law are the state of mind for this law is the owner needs to be negligent. The attack needs to happen without provocation. So I'll give you an example. We have several cases where a dog is on a leash being walked by the owner and a jogger comes up abruptly behind and passes them and the dog gets startled and bites the jogger, right? That may not constitute dangerous dog because that dog got startled and can be viewed as provoked. That's just an example, right? Maiming or causing serious bodily injury to an animal or bodily injury to a person other than the owner. So what is serious bodily injury? So for an animal, that would be any laceration or serious injury that causes stitches or needs medical attention. All right. And bodily injury to any person other than the owner, that again is subject to interpretation. Bodily injury would be anything above causing just pain. So breaking the skin, right, would be a minimum for that. All right. What does negligently mean? And this is kind of long, but let me just kind of paraphrase it. So a person is negligent when he or she should be aware of a substantial and justifiable risk that the person's conduct would cause the bite to happen. All right, so negligent would be, I know I have a hole in my fence and I have a very large dog that's aggressive. I don't fix my fence, my dog gets out and severely injures a person, right? That would be an example of negligent. And it's vastly different from that word permits. Remember in strays prohibited, negligently is a more specific term, which probably we should have that negligently in that strays prohibited ordinance because it would make a difference, right? So all that legal garbage. Again, if you have any questions about negligent, just so you know, every law in our system, ordinance, Hawaii revised statutes, all has a state of mind. So it's either intentionally, knowingly, negligently, or recklessly, right? Those are the states of mind for any crimes or violations. All right, dangerous dogs, police are always first responders. So if it's happening real time or if an ambulance is called, you need to call 911. All right, they can get there faster, document. We don't have emergency vehicles. Our humane investigators may conduct follow-up investigations or handle cases all the way from beginning to end, right? Investigation to prosecution. A dog may be removed if necessary for public safety if it is an imminent threat. So imminent threat means cannot be contained. Only a judge can decide the status and any corrective action. Penalties or fines up to $2,000 plus 30 days in jail are the penalties. And it doesn't preclude civil action. All right, so if you get bit severely by a dog, you can pursue it criminally, which it would go to court, arraignment, possibly trial, and then penalty. And then you could also pursue civil action against the dog owner in civil court. Per our laws, dogs that are deemed dangerous based on a set of facts and circumstances, there's three options. They may be transported to an approved boarding facility or veterinary clinic at the owner's expense pending court proceedings. If they're deemed an imminent threat and cannot be contained, or they may be safely secured on the owner's property with strict provisions and inspections. So that's something we would do. We would issue a formal written warning to them with specific guidelines on how to secure the dog. If, you know, in the past, we've had very severe dog bites. We've actually taken the dogs, but then the owner constructed kennels and, you know, made the dogs met with the strict guidelines. So we would return the dogs to them and impound them to that property pending the criminal proceeding. So they could only take the dogs out for medical reasons. Or they can be taken to us and housed until the final disposition of the trial. This is the least positive solution for that animal, because we've had dogs up to close to a year with us, and locking a dog in a kennel with no walking or enrichment up until the trial really is, to me, that's kind of cruel. All right, because the dog, it's too long for a dog to be like that. So we kind of avoid doing that unless absolutely necessary. All right, and sometimes we do have to do that, but just realize that, especially with COVID now, our court system is so backlogged. You know, these cases can take up to 2 years to adjudicate, and that's a long time. All right, and whoever's issued the citation will be responsible for making this determination on what happens to the dog pending the criminal trial. Out and about with your pet. I forgot to mention something too. Hawaii's not too advanced like Oregon. We're not there yet. So dogs and animals are considered property. So they are considered property just like a bed or a television set, even though we know that they do feel things. You know, they're almost I'm going to mess up this word, sentient beings. Okay, I did mess it up. Anyway, all right. So just that you know, animals are property. So I don't know if it's on here. Is evictions on here? I just want to cover that really
I don't
quick.
think evictions are on
Okay,
there.
I don't think we have any slides on evictions, but just in case you know, we're heavily involved with evictions and animals as well. So because dogs and animals are considered property, the landlord has certain responsibilities under that landlord tenant code guidelines. So like whatever the landlord would do after an eviction with a television set or a bed or any property for of that tenant, they need to hold that property for, I think it's 15 days in most cases. So, you know, landlords just can't come and tell us, hey, come get these animals, they left them behind. The landlord needs to make boarding arrangements for the specified amount of time. They can't just surrender them because they're just like property. All right. All right, out and about with your pet once again. All right, always keep your pets on a leash. My neighbor even walks his cat on a leash, but that's a unique situation. There are dog-friendly parks, and we have those listed on our website. Just so you know, whenever you enter a dog-friendly park and take your dog off leash, these kind of dangerous dog bite, all these other scenarios are they're exempt because it's more like a civil matter because these dog parks are like you're voluntarily letting your dog off leash with other dogs. Pet litter law. So pet litter would be basically poop or feces. So that falls under the litter law, which we don't enforce, HPD does. So if your neighbor's dog or comes in your yard and poops and the neighbor doesn't pick it up, that would fall under the litter law. All right. And always do not leave your pets unattended. And make sure, I'm not too sure about this, but is there an age limit? There isn't an age limit for who can control a dog.
Don't think there is. I think we looked at that and I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's always a good idea not to let juveniles solely in control of a dog, especially if the dog is larger.
Yes.
Manners and socialization. We recommend or highly endorse positive training techniques. All right. It's about being consistent, and you really need to, you know, it's people and pet time, right? So it's really building that trust with your animal, being consistent and using positive reinforcement. Now, certain forms of training aren't illegal per se, but they could constitute animal cruelty, especially with the use of certain collars being worn 24/7, etc. Dog bite prevention signals. All right, featuring Tano the pit bull. So first and foremost, whenever you're entering an area, you know, this is what I always tell the postal workers, you need to look for signs that there's a dog. Are there chew toys lying around the yard? Is there a water dish? Is there poop in the yard? So always, you know, it's situational awareness whenever you go into a situation, right? There always could be an animal there, but you got to look for those clues. Just because a dog wags its tail doesn't mean it's friendly. All right, some of the triggers for dogs are fear, frustration, and guarding or being territorial. So these are kind of like the body postures in cartoon form featuring Tano. So the first one will start top left and move to the right. So kind of alert, hair standing up, ears back, and tail up.
Upturned. Mm-hmm.
There's a word for that. Suspicious, all right? Always look at the dog's eyes. Next one is scared. The eyes are wider, ears are still back, maybe tails are tail between the legs, and kind of that little lowering of the front legs and chest, right? That's oh no. Please, maybe ears flat, treat, and those puppy dog eyes, all right? Peace, head turn, don't get mad dad, all right? Ears are back, neck turned, no eye contact, all right?
The two peace ones are like appeasement. They're trying to please you and trying to make sure they're not getting in trouble, so to speak. Maybe they're what is the word? Not dominant. Maybe they're just trying to appease you, you know, trying to make sure that you'll be kind to them. They're a little more submissive.
The other peace one is like a two-edged sword though, because the next two, peace and conflicted. So big yawning, meaning that means the dog is stressed, right? Constant licking of the lips or nose, that dog is feeling stressed. So those types of dogs could be a risk of biting. Ignoring you, turning around, I'll be no threat. Also sniff, 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 and ignoring, right? Being friendly. So the dogs go in a circle, they arc around each other, they're being friendly, they're trying to get to know each other. Let's play, wagging tail, tongue hanging out, bowing down. Happy? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, well, happy, you know, but don't always assume a dog on his back with his belly up is always just a happy dog. He also may just be submissive. So that's kind of a two-edged sword too, in my opinion, because sometimes they're just fearful and they can go right on their back and expose their belly. So, but then you have the, of course, relaxed posture of a dog, which is just, you know, everything, mouth hanging low, wide open, panting nicely, not a lot of drool, eyes soft, and everything is just relaxed. But I just wanted to bring up, you know, I know a lot of people on this call are outreach workers, and we run into a lot of dogs on the road. I'm there too. I go into the encampments with my colleague, Shelly, and our education coordinator, Annie. And we see all of this out there, but a lot of times there's a lot of guarding. That's what a lot of dogs do, is guard their areas. So even if there's a tail wag, don't just assume that they're friendly. Dogs wag their tails for many different reasons. They wag them when they're suspicious as well and they're highly aroused. You want to read all the other cues. And a lot of these dogs are guarding the tents, their owners' belongings, and their owners, and that's what they're there for. I mean, I've seen the variety, the aggression, and I've seen very friendly dogs. So you just want to be really familiar with the different signals and the different cues that the dogs are giving you. And the biggest misconception we get is that the dog's wagging his tail, he must be friendly, and that is absolutely untrue. You can see it in many different things.
And also, I wish I had a picture of it, but the dog's eyes, they call it whale eye. I guess you could Google it, whale eyes in dogs. When those dogs look at you and there's white showing all around and really big, that's not a positive sign. And
the dog that's turning his back, that can, he's just really trying to avoid you, but if you push that dog could bite. I see that a lot when we bring in dogs that aren't used to being in a kennel and aren't very socialized. They'll turn their back and they'll hide in a corner because it's kind of like, I can't see you, so you can't see me, but if you push that dog, that could turn into a fear bite. So you just want to watch out for things like that.
All right. Okay, again, watch for signs. Friendly, fearful. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say friendly. That's a play bow that, you know, a lot of dogs do that. You'll see them when they want to play. They both go down, their tails wag, and they're very relaxed, and they want to play. So that's called a play bow.
Fearful, kind of cowering, lowering the head. And that's somewhat whale eye in that dog. You just can't see the whites. But that dog has like a really wide-eyed look. And then aggressive. Those are... When the dog's aggressive, that's probably the easiest thing to note. What to do when confronted by a dog? To tell you the truth, running is worse because dogs they have a prey drive. They're going to chase you down. If you're going to go into an area with dogs, you know, my officers and we tell the public the best thing to have with you is something like an umbrella or something longer that the dog can grab onto rather than you. Let's see. Blade your stance so that you don't appear as large to the dog. So turn sideways.
I don't know if anyone can see me.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else.
Crouch down, below. Don't ever pat the head. Don't go for a dog's head ever. Let them smell you. You always, if you want to touch them, go for their body, but really try not to touch unless you absolutely are sure the dog is friendly. But yeah, never go for the face. That's really scary. I mean, I always tell people, how would you like it if someone you just met started touching your face? Really not comfortable. Same for a dog. Just don't do it.
And especially with children like to get down low and just hug dogs and whatnot. Even if an owner, always ask permission first if you can pet their dog or approach their dog. But, even when the owner says yes, I've seen really bad bites when the owner says, no, my dog's friendly. And then the child goes and just gives the dog a hug and the dog bites the child on the face. So you got to be real careful when you don't know dogs. All right. And this is our dispatch 24/7 number, 808-356-2250, and you can report any kind of animal issue with us. People ask if pepper spray works. The answer is yes and no. So sometimes it works, sometimes it makes it worse. So I know they use pepper spray on bears, but that's a different concentration and much more streamed. Human pepper spray, it's 50-50 whether or not it works on a dog. Breaking up a dog fight.
Probably don't want to attempt
don't want to do
really, it. But just in case. Yeah, I mean, especially if you don't know the dog, you probably don't want to step in and break up a dog fight. It's not safe. But these are things that you could do if you want to try that aren't you going into the fight, lots of noise.
And I forgot one other deterrent. If you're out in public or out in doing enrich or outreach or whatever, our officers also carry air horns. The kind that you get at Walmart for like football games. Those work really good in startling the dogs. Right. That's a really good tool. So umbrella and air horns. Yeah. Even for this, breaking up a dog fight.
If you have water bottles. Well, I know a lot of you guys bring water bottles out when you're doing outreach, throw water at the dogs. That may stop if it's minor, if you're just starting, if you see something brewing. If you have a blanket, I don't think that we always have that, but just something to kind of startle them into stopping. Hopefully the owners are there to stop it, but really, I mean, just don't get in between the dogs. That's the biggest thing, because you probably will get bit.
All right. So if you need to intervene in a dog fight and must, do not grab the dog around the head. Once the dog is in aggressive mode, he's no longer able. If he's no longer able to reach what he wants to attack, then he will redirect the intensity to whatever he can, which is often you. Okay, so never grab by the collar or anything, because that's when they're going to bite you. Safest way to break up a dog fight is grab the back legs of each dog and pull them separately. All right. But honestly, unless you've done this, it's dicey.
Yeah.
So, we're just giving you options. We're not saying go ahead and do this. Or this is how you do it. By doing it with the legs, the dog is thrown off balance and is less apt to bite. If two adults are present, try to approach the dogs together and separate them at the same time. Then just be ready to have an umbrella because they're going to redirect on you after they get their bearings.
Oh, that's it.
Did I go too fast?
I don't know, but I guess we'll see, because we'll have questions.
Steph says I go too fast.
Steph is on this call, so she can let us know. No, she's on this training. So that's it for our meeting. I think I stopped sharing the screen, and I guess if Elliot wants to help us with questions, or if anyone has questions, we can start answering those. But here we go. The questions are starting. So the question is, what can Humane Society do in emergency cases when there's an animal in the home and a person has been hospitalized or detained for a prolonged period of time?
So looking on my right, in a green now.
Your sunglasses and your hat.
We'll address that question.
Close down.
Yeah, see. You want a cutting?
Are we on
Elliot,
mute?
Oh, no, we're not on mute.
Salad.
I'm hearing somebody else.
Somebody is not on mute. So what can we do if there's a person in the home and an animal in the home and the person has been hospitalized or detained for a prolonged period of time?
That's a good question. So this became really prevalent when COVID-19 came about. So we do have several options. If someone's hospitalized, we can pick up their animals. One of two things happens. Either the animal is in the home in which case someone will have to let us in. We'll have to have constant updates on the person being hospitalized, either through a caseworker or the person themselves. We would take the dog in. If it's going to be a prolonged period of time, we do have a foster program for this. However, the dog, there's certain criteria that must be followed. So like, we can't put an aggressive dog in a home for a long period of time. The dog needs to be spayed or neutered, but we do have options. So the best thing to do would be call our dispatch line and give them what's happening, and then we'll work for a solution. Like we've had dogs because people are sick for a while.
We hold them for about 2 to 3 weeks. So the pet safety net program falls under the outreach department. So that would be me. And generally I like to either work with the owner or their case manager. And we have criteria that needs to be followed. Like Harold said, they can't be aggressive. They have to be basically healthy. They can't have any long-term needs like a cancer dog. We just don't have anything to be able to support those types of cases. But we take it on a case-by-case basis depending on availability of our fosters, how much space we have here at Hawaiian Humane Society, what the owner is going through. And that goes for domestic violence cases as well. So, however, if they're detained and in jail, that's a different scenario. And we generally don't send those dogs out to foster, and we just hold them for the hold period. Right, Harold?
Yeah, but we try and work with the owner to see if they have a family member or friend that can come reclaim their animal on their behalf. But for COVID-19, we definitely, we will house those animals. We will go to their homes to get them. Of course, we have to take precautions, but we will hold those animals for COVID-19. And just realize when we're going to go into someone's home, we have to call the police to stand by to witness whenever we enter someone's home, for liability reasons.
Okay, next question is, can we talk about the laws that protect owners from having a healthy, well-fed pet removed from an owner just because they are houseless? So we get that question a lot. This person is homeless, and we get this from everywhere. I get it a lot just because people find out what my job is. Just because someone is houseless and they have an animal, that's not illegal. Being houseless is not illegal. Having a pet while being houseless is illegal, and mostly pets don't care if they're living in a mansion or in a tent as long as they're being taken care of. So because it's property, we can't just go in and pull a dog. And we wouldn't want that. The bond between a houseless owner and a pet, we see it. It's really strong. A lot of the dogs we see some cats, but mostly dogs. They're very healthy. They're very well taken care of, and our owners will feed the dogs for themselves. So we wouldn't go in and pull the dog. We just try to make sure the dog is provided for, that they're eating the right things, that when we have the ability to have a wellness clinic, we'll make sure the dogs have shots, they have leashes and collars, and we want to make sure they're set up correctly. Our job is not to, at least my team is to, of course, kick them off the property, because that's not what we do. We just make sure that the dogs are being well cared for, because it's not illegal to have a pet. You shouldn't be rich to have a pet as long as you're able to care for them properly. And of course, if they have 20 dogs, we want to talk to them to see if we can manage that a little bit. But, if they've got 1 or 2 dogs, generally we see that they're very well loved. We talk to many of them.
And really there's several standards. So like well cared for, and also there's it just meets the criteria for being cared for. It's not like our standard of care, but it doesn't meet the criteria of being animal cruelty. So there's that fine line of is it the best for the animal? Maybe not, but does it meet that threshold for animal cruelty? The answer is no. So
yeah, and the basic needs are water, shelter, and food. So they have to be able to be protected from the weather. They need to have food and access to water and be able to be removed from their own waste, to stand up in a crate and be able to move around out of their waste, right, Harold?
Yeah, and then food, adequate water, to maintain the health of the animal, and then veterinary care even falls under the cruelty statute. So if we go out in anywhere doing welfare checks in the homeless community or other neighborhoods, it would be necessary sustenance. So free to move about, get out of their feces and urine, clean, safe kenneling, adequate water, adequate shelter, and then veterinary care. So if it looks like it has a severe skin condition or really thin, we make the owners take them to the vets and see what's going on with them.
But if you ever have questions or want someone to do a welfare check, that same number that you call to report dog bites would be the same number to report something that's concerning. Like if you notice, like Harold said, a really skinny dog who is obviously not being fed, you can call and report that, and one of our humane investigators will go out and check on the welfare of the animal and then do a follow-up depending on what's going on in that situation.
Yeah, and the best types of reports, every report we receive is anonymous, you know, for members of the public. Everything is confidential, just like with the police department. But the best types of reports are not anonymous per se. You know, we want to take your name and information so we can get back to you and follow up with what happened with the case. But along those lines, the best type of reporting is really factual, objective observations. Like, what are you seeing? When is it happening? Where is it happening? What exactly, you know, people might say it's animal cruelty, the dog is skinny. Well, what does skinny look like? Are there ribs protruding or hip bones protruding? Can you see spinal, you know, their spine, you know, being really objectively descriptive, and that helps out our dispatchers and our officers because they kind of know what they're getting into. You know, can the animal, do we have to trespass on private property to view this animal? You know, we can't, without seeing an animal from public view or a public area, our officers can't go into gated areas to do inspections without permission. So all that's really important. I mean, even if you see an animal on the other side of a fence and you're standing on a ladder to look at that animal, our officers can't do that. That's basically a invasion of their Fourth Amendment rights doing that because you're using a ladder. So, you know, all those things come into play, and sometimes people don't understand that our officers can't just rush right in and demand to see animals. You know, we have to follow Fourth Amendment constitutional law like the police do. So it's very important that you be very descriptive and, you know, help us out. That'll help us out, have the case come a more positive outcome.
I think that covered Adriana's question too. Adriana, was that enough? Because we kind of touched on how to report it. Just making sure that covered your question too. Okay, perfect. Does anyone else have any questions about dog bite laws or animal cruelty or any of that? No. Oh. Nope. Perfect. So if you're ever on the road and you just want to, Shelly, who is on this call, she is our outreach coordinator, and I are in charge of the Pet Kokua team, which is our outreach arm. We're always happy to go on the road with groups. Granted, there's only 2 of us island-wide, so our time is not always there, but we're always happy to assist if we're able to. We've gone on the road with a few groups, usually Achieve Zero, but we're always happy to help if we're able to, or if there's something concerning and you want us to try outreach first, we're always happy to check on it. But Harold's team and our outreach team, along with our education coordinator, we all work together to try to tackle these issues as one unit.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, and wrap up that, you know, with COVID coming about, there were some good things coming out of this, and I want to say, like, learning about partners in care, and, you know, working with our ESF 6 mass or human care group every week on the calls. I've learned so much and have so much respect for all the work that all these agencies and nonprofits and groups are doing, because I knew nothing about all of this. And, you know, it's great because the only way we get results is, you know, we're the Humane Society, animal welfare, but, you know, we didn't cause a lot of these issues, and we're not responsible solely to solve them, but collectively and collaboratively as a community, I think we can make headway in kind of solving some of the issues that we come across and work together. But, you know, it's kind of opened my eyes, COVID-19 and the way these groups came together. And so I just want to thank everyone, you know, in closing.
There's one more question. Do we pick up chickens?
Haha. No. the you know what with chickens, I mean, we have like 80 on our campus just running amok. So there is no program for feral chickens right now. Our city used to have a program. Um, you know, trapping chickens and disposing of them or euthanizing them is not very efficient. I think back when our city stopped doing it, they were paying I think the number was $149 per chicken. So that's not very many chickens when you budget like $180,000 or $160,000. So, and trapping is very inefficient. We currently do not take chickens. There are no programs, either state or city. But my personal opinion is that the state or city needs to come up with a solution for this. You know, there are some oval control options which are used for pigeons, which I've read works on chickens, but our state needs to approve that. And I think some legislation may be in the works for that, where you put it with the chicken feed, the chicken eats it, and basically it's like birth control. The eggs, the shells don't harden, so the chicks don't hatch. That's being used for pigeons right now. So it just needs, but you really need to contact your legislator or a council member, you know, to get kind of push them in the right direction to come up with a solution, because, you know, I had a rooster running amok in my garage and pooping all over the place and crowing, and it's really irritating.
They also want to know about stray cat pickup.
Okay, fowl for pickup. Stray cats, if they're friendly and social, we can pick them up, but we do not accept trapped cats right now, because the only alternative for trapped free roaming cats that aren't socialized is euthanasia. We do recommend highly our free of charge spay neuter process. So if you trap a cat, spay neuter it with our clinic. I think walk-ins are Wednesday, Thursday, and we return the cat to the area. We will take in trapped cats that are injured, but they need to be injured. So like we have people calling us saying, I have an injured cat under my house. It can't walk. It has a bad leg. You know, they can trap that cat and bring it into us because it's injured. Fowl, I'm assuming you're meaning
chickens,
peafowl or ducks. We don't pick up chickens.
I don't think we pick up. We don't pick up wild ducks.
No, either. Anything is injured though, we'll pick up.
Yes. Wildlife is we don't do wildlife basically unless it's injured. Oh, it was chicken, but yeah, wildlife is not under us. We do domestic animals. And then for the cats, trap, neuter, return, manage is really the most humane option for them. If they're all spayed and neutered, they can't breed. You know, we like our cat feeders who are responsible in spaying and neutering their cats, which we have many that are very responsible, but that's the most humane thing. If they can't breed, we can't add kittens. No kittens, then we don't have cats running around. So that's kind of what we really hope that the community will help us with. It's really a people problem and not a cat problem. The community really needs to pitch in to help us spay, neuter, and help solve the problems and solve the issues.
So cats that are stray and friendly, like it's possibly an owned cat that are stray, and it's friendly. There's no. There is a pickup charge. It's like $100 for the officer to go out.
But you can drop them off.
You can drop them off, but just realize if they're feral and they're not friendly, but we will scan them for a chip and try to get them back to their owner, because all free roaming cats, you know, that's something we didn't cover. So also under our ordinance is free roaming cats, or if you own a cat and it's allowed to go outdoors as well as indoors or just outdoors, it needs to be sterilized and microchipped. That there's an ordinance for that. So.
Right. Any other questions? Used to be 35.
35 is the owner's surrender fee. The trip charge is always, because it could take up to an hour, right, to send an officer out to pick up a stray cat, and really stray cats aren't in our. Steph can correct me, but I don't think stray cats are under our contract. I think it's just stray dogs.
I think Steph still on this call. She may not be on this call any longer, but we can
Why don't Rochelle, why don't you call me directly, or call and dispatch can transfer me, then I can answer your question, because it sounds like somewhere along the line someone's having an issue, and I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah, so I think calling Harold directly would be great. 356-2250.